I'd like to acknowledge that we are gathered here today on the treaty lands and traditional territories of the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, the Wendat, Huron people. We also acknowledge the many First Nations, Inuit, Métis, and other global Indigenous peoples who call Mississauga home. We are grateful for the opportunity to share the land, to live and work and play. Before starting our event today, I would like to thank our From the Corner Office sponsors, Kaiser Mason Ball, represented here by our board member Jonathan Borelli, and Gallagher, represented by Adam Novak. Thank you very much for your continued support of the series. I'd also like to, yes, thank you. I'd also like to recognize our chair, who is here with us this morning, Steve Rohn, President and CEO of Weston Forest. Now to officially introduce our guest speaker this morning and to say a few words, I would like to welcome Jonathan Borelli, partner with Kaiser Mason Ball. Jonathan.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm very happy to introduce Michael Ruff. He's president of PepsiCo Beverage Canada and was appointed into this role in June 2021. He began his career with PepsiCo in 1998, and over his 25-plus year career, he has led high-performing teams successfully across many disciplines. His experience spans a range of field sales, operations, customer development, and commercialization leadership roles in North America. Prior to becoming president of PepsiCo Beverages Canada, he served as the SVP Commercial Strategy and Planning for PepsiCo Beverages North America, where he led the commercial strategy and omni-channel commercialization functions in the U.S. across all DSD retail channels. His experience, coupled with a passion for building a high-performing, diverse, and inclusive culture, is ideal as he leads the Canadian beverage business, which includes more than 4,500 employees, customer, franchise, and allied partnerships, and iconic brands that we all know, such as Aquafina, Gatorade, and of course, Pepsi. Additionally, he's the chairman of the Canadian Beverage Association and an active board member for Food and Consumer Products Canada and the Grocery Foundation. He holds a Bachelor of Commerce degree from the University of Guelph. Please join me this morning in welcoming Michael Ruff.
So this discussion today, hopefully, I know maybe some of you saw the brief, we'll talk a little bit about the business, talk a little bit about career, talent, and then hopefully we can open up the floor and have a conversation, and if there's any questions that anyone has, I'd be happy to discuss it. We're living in a pretty interesting time now with what's happening in the Canadian consumer landscape, the macro environment coming out of the pandemic. We talk about normal and new normal. I don't know if it is. I think things from our perspective are actually very different. And so we can get into any areas of conversation or topics that you want to explore, and happy to have that conversation. So thank you very much for having me, and over to you.
Awesome. Okay, have a seat. All right. So that's great. I've got a few questions here, obviously, but let's have a conversation with everyone here. But let's get started. Before we start, we get into a little bit about your career. We like to do that and sort of understand the path and sort of where some of those values and leadership traits were developed. Just want to get a better sense. I'm not sure everyone in the room has the best sense of PepsiCo Beverages Canada, and what is encompassed by PepsiCo in terms of the various brands that you have and the operations in Canada.
So PepsiCo in Canada. So I look after the beverage division. So there's two divisions in Canada: there's a foods division and the beverages division. Collectively, we're 10,000 employees across the country. It's just under $5 billion in total between foods and beverages, and it's fairly equally split in terms of the number of employees, actually the size of our businesses as well. We operate, so the business that I look after, let's call it $2.5 billion. We have 6 manufacturing sites. Our head office is in Mississauga, just down the road here. Brand new office we just built just prior to the pandemic, ironically enough.
Seems that a lot of companies just moved into new space just before the pandemic.
Yeah, it was an interesting time. We had 2 offices, a foods and a beverages office. And as PepsiCo, we're the same company, and so we decided to put the businesses in the same office, and we basically built the ground up state-of-the-art facility, and during the pandemic realized quickly that probably didn't need all that space. And so we still have 17,000 square feet if anyone's interested in a nice, good lease rate. We can probably accommodate you. But we leased out about half, and then we moved 660 head office employees into the one facility. So we're a Canadian company. That's the way that I would say it. We report to the U.S., but we're a Canadian company. We employ Canadians. 85% of what we sell and distribute is actually manufactured in Canada. And by the end of 2025, after investing $100 million in new manufacturing capability in Montreal, we'll be close to 95% of everything that we sell is actually manufactured in Canada. So we have a big footprint, 43 distribution centers, 6 manufacturing facilities, 5,000 employees on my side of the business, and we're in every province. We have a business that is made up of corporate run businesses and franchise run businesses. So if you think about our corporate run businesses, it represents about 90% of our business, and then we have really cool partnerships with anchor bottlers across the country. So there's 9 of them, and 4 of them represent 80% of that volume. So you've got franchise bottlers in Newfoundland. I don't know if you've ever been to Newfoundland, but it's hard to find a Coke in Newfoundland, to be honest with you. It's one of our highest share markets in the world.
Wow.
Browning Harvey Limited does an amazing job. And then we have a big anchor bottler in Quebec City. In Quebec City, they've been around for over 100 years. It's a 4th, soon-to-be 5th generation run family business. And they're incredibly successful. They're amazing partners. And they do things, we have this really cool relationship where they actually have some brands that we distribute licensing agreements. So you may have seen Montelier water, sparkling water. That is a brand that they own, and actually we distribute it across Canada. So it's a fairly unique relationship, that partnership with our franchise businesses in Canada. Then we have some smaller distribution centers that get to some very remote areas like the Arctic Circle that you just don't have that muscle or the institutional ability to do so. So that's a little bit about the business. What else do you want to talk about?
That's really interesting. Next time I'm in Newfoundland, I'll make sure to have a Pepsi chaser after this speech.
There you go.
But let's start at the beginning. Let's go back to high school, university, that sort of thing. What were some of the things that helped shape the direction, and how the heck did you end up at Pepsi?
So I grew up actually about 2 kilometers from where I live today. I was born in Oakville OT Hospital, but I actually lived in Erin Mills. I had a very, kind of normal upbringing. 2 parents, a sister. Moved up to the country when I was about 8 years old. Actually don't live far from a couple of the gentlemen over here that we were just talking with in Caledon. And when we moved out to the country, I was actually terrified. I remember this. I was 8 years old, let's call it, and I didn't know what to expect. There's no houses. We lived in Mississauga. We had a neighbor right beside you, and these schools are in the middle of nowhere. There's no plaza next to you. And
When you taking the bus to school?
We took a bus to school, absolutely. And I was terrified of the bus. I remember my mom actually followed the bus for a week. I was terrified. And one of the things that I quickly realized is that the whole community that I was involved in was centered around sports. And the school centered around sports, and I didn't play sports. And so I felt very, I felt like I didn't belong. And over time, I developed a very, very strong appetite to be competitive in sports, as you kind of get to be familiar with what is important to the group that you're operating in. And so I started playing a lot of sports. And so that sports has led me to a lot of different places. I'll talk about it in a second, but you know, I had the opportunity to do a lot of different sports. I played hockey at a very competitive level. I played lacrosse at a very competitive level. And I wanted to try all these different sports. And I also had this like learning appetite. So I was into everything. I was into music. My dad bought me a guitar when I was younger. And why I'm sharing this with you is that, you know, as I went to high school, I was in the School of the Arts for the band, but I would go to band practice in my football uniform because I love sports. I wanted to do a little bit of everything. So I had this like insatiable appetite for learning. And so what happened was sports created an opportunity for me. I had an offer to be a scholarship to go to Cornell University to play Division I lacrosse, and I accepted that. I went down to school, prospected it out. I was registered, I was ready to go, I had a residence picked out, and I got cold feet about 7 weeks before school started. I was dating my wife at the time, my girlfriend at the time, who's my wife today, and I didn't want to be 5 hours away from my wife. And so this was kind of like the first time where I made a decision which I didn't really know what the outcome was going to be of this. So my dad's like, listen, this is problematic. You are ready to go to school at a great institution. You've made a commitment. We've given the down payment. There's a small down payment that was required. And now, what are you going to do? We expect you to go to school. That was it. We expect you to go to school. So I actually reached out. I was being recruited for football at the University of Ruff. They had a program which was the exact same program. It's a sister program to the program in Cornell called Hotel and Food Administration. It's a Bachelor of Commerce degree. It's a sister program. It was amazing. And by this really odd luck or fate, I reached out to the coach and said, hey, listen, I've got a little bit of a problem here. I don't have a place to go to school. I'm not going to go to the school. And they said, let me see what I can do. And they actually got me in. I ended up going to the University of Guelph and had, you know, arguably, in my mind, one of the best experiences of my life. And so as I went to school and I was studying my Bachelor of Commerce degree, really focused in on food. I wanted to be in the service industry. I wanted to be either in hotel or be a restaurant owner. You know, at that time, this was kind of like the early 90s. The service industry was being touted, as many of you know, as a great place to have a job. We were in a bit of a recession, and it's like, hey, service is going to be, you know, recession-proof. And you've got all these different opportunities that you can get into. And so I went to Guelph, and then as I was graduating, I had a friend of mine who had graduated a year earlier, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. I had some really cool summer jobs that were in the industry. Worked at hotels, worked in the food industry. But I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And I had a friend that actually had graduated a year earlier and went to go work for Coke. And I was talking with him, and I said, I don't know what I want to do. And he said, you have to get into this consumer packaged goods industry. You have to do it. He goes, it's like built for you. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, it's fast-paced, it's dynamic, it's competitive, it's a meritocracy. It's perfect for you. And I did some research, and I wasn't thinking about this at all. I wasn't thinking about that as a food arm of an opportunity. And so I started prospecting, and he was actually working for Minute Maid, which was actually, they morphed into the Coke business. But I started looking at all the different places, and I remember looking through the papers. You guys remember newspapers, right?
There are a few still around. Yeah.
Still, yeah. But I was looking through the job ads, and there was a job at PepsiCo, and I was like, okay, that's interesting. PepsiCo, what do I need to know about PepsiCo? Well, I love the brands, iconic brands, big organization, consumer packaged goods, and they were saying, hey, we're growing, right? So we're growing. What does that mean? Okay, well, that meant that there was opportunity. So I actually applied for a role. It's called an account development rep. I didn't hear back from anyone. Sent my resume in by mail. Assuming maybe it got lost in the mail, not sure. Followed up again, nothing. Then I followed up again, and I'm like, can I just understand what the status of my resume is? And they said, yeah, you're not qualified for this job. This is like an advanced selling job. I'm like, okay, good to know. It didn't really say that in the job description, but fine. What are the jobs that I could do? And they said, well, we'll let you know if something comes up. I thought my resume was pretty good. I thought I was, it was clear what my ambitions were. And so I followed up again in another couple of weeks, and then another couple of weeks. And finally, I guess they got sick of me. They said, hey, listen, we have a job we want you to come in and interview for. And I'm like, okay, what is it? And they said, it's a unionized dispatcher for the trucking and transport division. I was like totally taken back. And I thought, you know what? I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna have an interview and I'm gonna show them who I am.
Right.
And I'm gonna make them know who I am, okay? And this is gonna be an enabler to do so. So I went in, I interviewed for the job. Ron Hubbard, who's not with us today, but was a legend in the transport part of our organization, offered me a job and said, here you go, it was $65,000, I remember like it was yesterday. And he said, you're gonna be dispatching trucks. And I said, well, why did you call me in for this role?
I wasn't qualified for this other job.
Yeah, exactly. Why now? And I had worked for my brother-in-law's trucking company for a summer, just helping out doing some local dispatching. And we saw that on your resume. What a complete, it was fate, almost, right? So I said, thank you for the job, but I'm not interested. They're like, what? This is, you know how hard this job is to get? Do you know what this means? And I'm like, I want to be in this side of the business. I want to be on the sales side. So they're like, okay, no problem. I didn't hear from them, called back again. And they said, we have a job for you. And it's on the phones, telephone sales, calling customers, taking orders, keying it into the system. And if you're interested, we have it for you. It starts at $18,000. And, we'll see what you got. And it's been amazing. That's literally the first job I had at PepsiCo. And I was in that job for about 8 months. And they started to, at the time, we didn't have sales reps in the market selling in Pepsi in Toronto. It was amazing. We were losing share. We were getting killed by the competition because our competitor was out there selling all these pre-sales. We call them pre-sale reps. You go in, you sell value add, sell in the stores, account development.
Bit of complacency going on.
Well, it was a productivity initiative. We were losing share. It was a cost-cutting initiative. And so after about 8 months, they said, hey, we have this opportunity to go out and actually pre-sell. And again, just a real, unbelievable twist of fate. The people that I had built relationships on the phone for 8 months, the territory that they opened up was actually the people that I was calling on. So I had an 8-month relationship over the phone with these folks. And that was an amazing transformation because I could go in there and put a face to the name. And I had already established trust with them because that was one of the most important things that I needed to learn was about how to build trust with customers. And so that's how I got into Pepsi.
That's quite a story. And I want to pivot to a discussion about talent because everybody's concerned about this issue right now, attracting, retaining, developing talent. And I think back to what you said about moving to the country and how you didn't exactly feel like you were fitting in and that sort of thing. And I'm wondering how much of that plays into your work today when you think about newcomers to Canada, or having been here not too long, and that feeling among those individuals about, I'm not sure I feel like I fit in. And when it comes to that aspect of culture at PepsiCo, can you speak a little bit about how those early experiences may have informed how you approach talent and creating that culture within the company?
I think there's really two parts to it. So one of the things so we'll talk about the attraction component to it, so how we bring people into the organization. But there's a couple of parts. So one is I believe wholeheartedly in a career growth model that is based on, that is a meritocracy, right? So the best people with the best experiences that are focused on doing things the right way, so getting results the right way, and that really focus in on bringing people along, that creates opportunity. That creates career growth and career opportunity. So it's very simple. It's like deliver the results, get all the right different critical experiences that get you ready for the next role, whatever that looks like. Understand where your strengths and opportunities are, leverage your strengths, but more importantly, focus on the development side, so you know specifically what are the things that you need to work on to make yourself better in the job or ready for your next job. And then making sure that you bring people along. So as an individual contributor, you have a responsibility to work within your peer group to make them as best as possible. It's the one player on the team that is, you can't have 17 Wayne Gretzky's. You'd like to have a Wayne Gretzky on every team, but every single person on that team is equally important. Learning that from the sports days and all of the teams and everything that I played on, that's critically important. So that talks about career and career development and career growth. But the more important thing is, in today's environment, from my point of view, is that this culture of empathy and understanding, was really honed through the pandemic, but moreover, our culture changed over time because we deliberately set out and said we need to build a strategic business plan that allowed us to make this a place where people want to come work, okay? In the early days of Pepsi, it was not great. It was like I just talked about the productivity initiative. Like I call it the burning the furniture years, where you were doing everything you possibly could to meet your bottom line because you weren't growing. We weren't growing. So in a period from 2010 to 2013, the market was very, very difficult. We had this, out of the top 20 fast-moving consumer goods companies, half of them weren't growing at all, and actually declining. The market was tough, the customer environment was tough because the customers weren't growing if your manufacturers aren't growing. You had taxation looming over your head, you had regulation looming over your head. You had this, it was a really, really tough environment. And so we needed to find a way as an organization to be able to communicate to our employees and to prospective employees that this is a great place to work. And so we kind of drew a line in the sand and said, what are we doing that's not allowing us to grow? We were missing plan every year. It was tough. We have to explain our results. You were selling buildings to make your numbers. It was not good. And so we put a line in the sand and we said, we're going to drive growth. We're going to drive growth. And we're going to build a plan to do so. And we started this thing called a strategic business plan. And I'm going to get to how that translates into culture. The strategic business plan was a line in the sand that said, hey, we're not growing, we need to grow. Because we believe that growth is the ultimate attractor, it's the ultimate retainer, it's the ultimate engagement. So personal growth, growth in the business, you're making investments, you're expanding. This is what people want. They don't want to be in another environment, right?
They want to be part of something going this way.
Exactly. And so we said, okay, how are we going to do that? And in 2013, we started the work. We went out and surveyed all of our employees, 5,000, talked to everyone and said, where are the areas of opportunity? What do we need to do differently? We got together, we did some insights, we did some benchmarking on businesses across the world. And what we found was we had a really antiquated portfolio. We were very reliant on carbonated soft drinks. We did not have a feature-proof portfolio.
I was going to ask you about that. How much of this was related to changing consumer sentiment?
It's a big part of it. So we were about 70% carbonated soft drinks, 30% non-carbonated beverages or beverages that were more kind of health forward. And we were benchmarking ourselves versus the U.S. business. The U.S. business was growing, where they were A, growing, and B, they were growing 3 points faster. And so we're like, okay, well, what's happening here? So we made a quick pivot, and we said our new objective is to skate to where the puck is going, not to where the puck has been. You may have heard someone say that, the Wayne Gretzky quote, a good Canadian cultural quote, right? We're going to skate to where the puck is going, not to where it's been. And so we totally changed our portfolio, less reliant on carbonated soft drinks. This is where we got into businesses like Bubbly. Okay, Bubbly is a $250 million business for us now. We're going to shift to zero sugar products. So Gatorade, we're gonna make zero sugar. We're gonna focus in on Pepsi Zero Sugar. We're gonna change our portfolio to meet the needs. We got into probiotics, we got into energy drinks, we got into all of these different things that we weren't in. And what happened as we changed our portfolio was we started to see robust growth. We started to see consumers adopting our products on a faster rate than our competitor. We started to see a change in trajectory of our business where we became the market leader in liquid refreshment beverages. We were leading growth. We were literally 100% of the category growth for that next 3 years. And so the portfolio, we called it, what was the name that we used to call it? We used to call it Build an Advantage Portfolio. And so we did that. But that was only one pillar. The second pillar was around delivering results together. We had partnerships that were very fraught. We would get in these battles with our big retailers and our big customers. We were not in every account in Canada. Pepsi products are in about 80% of Canadian households. They purchase about 80, people that buy our products purchase about 80 liters a year. But we weren't everywhere. That's today. Back then, it wasn't like that. So we said we're going to reestablish partnerships.
So just to clarify, when you talk about expanding the portfolio, are you talking about both Pepsi Global and PepsiCo Canada, or how does that?
No, this is a Canadian bespoke solution for a problem specific to Canadians, to the Canadian market. We looked at beverages businesses around the world, and the US had kind of already moved to some of that direction, but they were doing it a different way. We looked at it and said, what are the needs of Canadians? What do Canadians want? And we have a different portfolio. We have different formulas. We have different packaging, different communication. We are Canada. We operate independently. I sign my board letter is I'm responsible. If the company goes down, I go to jail. So this is literally a Canadian proposition. And so the first two pillars were around getting the portfolio into growth, which is a better environment to attract talent. The second one was around building better partnerships. That makes people want to work in those businesses because it's more collaborative. The third one was around unlocking productivity to grow. In the old days when you're not growing, we would have just taken productivity, dropped it to the bottom line. We needed to do so because we had no top line momentum. The third one was around investing to win. And this is where we spent an inordinate amount of time making sure that from a people standpoint, we put programs in place, development programs in place. We stood up employee resource groups that were of the voice of our organization, the Women's Inclusion Network, Equal, Mosaic, the PepsiCo Asian Network. We brought these teams together and we put a real focus on building talent, building capability, attracting the best talent, and making sure that we invested in our people. And I talked about that career growth model. That was the centerpiece of how we built all of our development programs. Pepsi President's Leadership Forum, new leader integration, all of these things were programs that really didn't exist. And so we codified all that and brought that together. That changed the trajectory of our business. That put us on the map. We were growing, we were achieving plan. We had our organizational health scores skyrocketed. We were attracting talent from everywhere. We were going to one school for people. We were going to Laurier Business School for people to come work for us. I don't know. That might not be representative of the communities that we operate and live in. So maybe we should go to other schools. Maybe we should go to York University. Maybe we should go to McMaster. Maybe we should go to Humber. Maybe we should go to some of these other schools and really attract the talent that builds a diverse, high-performing culture that we're investing in, that's going to continue to be this growth engine for us. And that was from 2014, so it was 2020, it was I call it SPP 2020. So it started in 2020, started in 2015 and went to 2020. And there was a quick realization that said in 2019, we're a year away and our SPP is over. And the second part to that is we reconstituted our SPP. And the SPP is not an action, they're focus areas. The actions are on an annual operating plan basis. And so we reconstituted and we basically said, okay, well, what do we like about this strategic business plan? And what should we do different to modernize it? And what we did was, it was amazing. The call to action was not about driving growth. It was now around leading the way. What do we do to lead the way? how do we
Right. And what does that mean, right?
and what does that mean? And so we went back, and so the pillars are actually very similar. They're similar, but it was not around building an advantage portfolio because we built it. We built partnerships with Danone, Avion. We took on Guru, which is a new local Canadian product. We built out the bubbly portfolio. We did all these things. And so we have this advantage portfolio. So it was like unleashing the portfolio. That's what it is now. Leverage that portfolio. The second one was not around build partnerships. It was around delivering advantage partnerships, looking at end-to-end solutions. So rather than going in and saying, here's my costing, how much do you want to buy? It was about how do we unlock the best mutual value to drive growth together. It totally changed the narrative. We went and said from unlocking productivity and investing back in the business to changing the game. We took all our productivity and we invested hundreds of millions of dollars in lines. We put a Gatorade line in Mississauga at the Fallborn plant down here. That was a $20 million investment, the biggest investment in the history of Canada at the time. We just put a $100 million investment in Montreal, which is now the biggest investment. We just stood up a $100 million investment in Milton for distribution and third-party logistics. We put automation in the Caledon warehouse, where it was the first automated warehouse ever in the PepsiCo system. So this was changing the game is what we called it. So it wasn't around unlocking productivity to grow, it was around changing the game. And then the last one, which was investing in our people, this was propped up to, it was around elevating our team. Every single thing we do as an organization, every single thing, we have to lead with empathy and understanding. We have to understand what's happening with our people. We have to acknowledge that this is a tough business. We have to make sure that we manage change in a compelling way. We need to make sure that we understand the uniqueness of every single individual in the organization. And we need to acknowledge it, and we need to respond and respect that. And that's where this notion now, as you think about our SPP 2025, which we're coming close to the end on, is things have really evolved. Technology is playing a way more important role.
Yeah, I was going to dig into some of that, yeah.
So I can keep going here, but I just I can talk about this business all day. But the thing that's really compelling is you're starting to see a big change, okay? So when we talk about our SPP 2025, which we started in 2019, the pandemic hit right when we were rolling that out. Okay, that changed everything. You guys know this. We had to redo everything in our business, everything. The way we work, the way we communicate, the way we compensate, the way we communicate, everything had to be reconstituted. And it was really good for us because you build muscles that you didn't have before. You built these agility muscles. You built these resilience muscles. And those are for the people that stuck around. We had a lot of people leave. Unfortunately. But the people that stuck around, they're better for the experiences they went through. And so when you think about the SPP 2025, which we're coming close to the end of it now, we're more than halfway through. And you think about those new areas of focus, they're not new areas of focus, they're just ratcheted up because it's around leading the way. If people are connected to something that's bigger than what they're doing specifically as an individual, you have a higher level of engagement, you have a higher level of satisfaction, you get more out of your people. People are way more satisfied in their job. And if you can respond with that human centricity in terms of what's specific for them in an action, then I think you're doing everything that you possibly can.
You're really humanizing the business.
It's totally changed.
Yeah, I want to get to a couple of areas of it and then move to the room because I'm sure that folks have some questions. In addition to talent, over the last couple of years, there's been some real issues around supply chain. And you guys distribute nationwide, et cetera, and I'm sure receive all the inputs. And we were talking just earlier about things like how sugar weighs less than sweeteners. Other way around. Sorry, sugar weighs more than sweeteners. So can you tell us how the recent supply chain issues have affected your business and how you kind of made your way through that?
So I think this is a massive area of conversation, obviously. I think we're very fortunate. So we have flexibility in terms of how we can take our products to market. So we have we can go through warehouses, right? So we can go through third-party distribution systems. We can use third-party trucking and logistics. But we also have our own fleet, and we do direct store delivery. So when you're in and we have a lot of assets. We're an asset-rich, low-margin business. That's the way to think about it. And we also produce in Canada. And that is atypical for large Canadian food manufacturers. They just don't, they import. And so that is a massive advantage. When you can produce closer to the consumer in a supply-constrained environment, all you're doing is managing inventories. So we had a unique advantage during the pandemic that we could leverage our supply chain and move things around and use different tools that we have based on our asset base. The broader issue, really, from a supply chain and logistics standpoint, as we, if I'll take a step back, we did have to simplify things pretty dramatically because frontline labor was very, very challenging. So we went through SKU rationalization. We took products out of the market that were less incremental, that were much smaller. Probably pissed off a bunch of consumers in doing so. But we grew the business pretty significantly, so there was trades that were made, and most of them traded to other products within our portfolio. But that created massive supply chain efficiencies. It's amazing when you start to lean out your business and you look at how complicated you make things over the time. When you take those things out, you realize how efficient you can actually become as an organization. So I would say that was, leveraging our asset base, reducing complexity was incredibly important. And the last thing I'll say is, with labor availability being very challenged, I'll give you Quebec as an example. It was probably our toughest market from a labor standpoint. We actually, again, because of where our assets are located, we actually had the ability to service part of the Quebec market from Ontario where we had stronger labor pools. So we could actually send people into those areas where we had stronger labor pools. On the flip side, some of the more challenging things that we're facing today as a result of the pandemic are anything that we bought, trucks, or any of our capital components. So we're talking about these manufacturing facilities and these investments that we're making in manufacturing. It's taken some time because all of the long arm, all of the issues that we're facing in the pandemic from a component standpoint, just back up the supply chain. And so, we're actually paying in some projects now 20-30% more than we paid in the contract to get these things going. You pay a premium on transport because of the availability of trucks. So we're dealing with, you see in the marketplace today, there's a lot of noise on food inflation, consumer CPI. It's politics. There's incredible supply chain cost inputs that every one of you likely faces. I employ Canadians. I have to pay them a good living so that they have a successful life to be able to manage in that environment. And I have no issues with that at all. I'm not going to build profit on the back of my people. That's not how it's going to work. So I'm going to pay them what we can to make sure that they work in this environment. And so all of these factors of input all kind of affect the supply chain in some form or fashion. But what I would say now is, being able to go through the pandemic and being able to respond the way we did and understand the art of the possible in that situation really helped us be able to create a roadmap for if we need to do anything. We know what our capabilities are, and we know that the team's very resilient and very agile, and so we can do it. I don't know if I answered your question properly.
No, absolutely. And I want to move to a couple of other areas that are of interest. Probably of great interest to your next generation of employees, if not current generation of employees, and that's on the notion of sustainability and how PepsiCo is approaching your net zero initiatives and goals thereof. Can you tell us a little bit about those initiatives and sort of also the why in terms of, it's the right thing to do, but from a business perspective, what have you realized by undertaking some of these initiatives?
Yeah, I don't think there's any argument from our side. We have this thing called PepsiCo Positive. If you haven't seen it, I encourage you to go online. It's really PepsiCo's mission. So I have my local mission, which is around leading the way. But it's underpinned by PepsiCo's initiative, which is PepsiCo Positive. PepsiCo Positive is around positive agriculture, positive value chain, and positive choices. And each one of those has initiatives. And those initiatives, some of them are global initiatives, some of them are local initiatives, some of them are government initiatives, regulatory initiatives. And so the way I would describe it is, when I came back to Canada in 2020 to run the Canadian business, and I talked about this SVP that we had, we talked about those 4 pillars. Underneath the pillar is this thing around sustainability. And we really weren't getting to it. And so it's been a hurry-up offense for us in Canada to make sure that not only we were compliant with regulatory, but more important, this is all I hear from the organization. What are we doing? How are we doing it? This is a massive source of engagement for our team. And so we've put a lot of time and effort into this. We got together, we have green teams, we have leaders that lead sustainability. We spent a lot of time working with the government. And we said, okay, what's the art of the possible here? What do we need to do? What should we do? Would we do? And could we do? And I would say now we've gone from probably being fast followers to leading the way in Canada, which was what we had asked our team to be. We wanted to lead the way. So, we are 99% landfill diversion as an example, right? So there's one little location that we just have to figure out how to unlock that. The one down here in Mississauga, that plant down there, that's the 4th largest manufacturing facility in North America, 100% landfill diversion. We will be 100% recycled plastic in our single-serve beverages next year. You may have seen my competitor make some headlines. It's not true. Their cap's not recyclable, their label's not recyclable. So I'm going to be humble about this, and I'm going to say, we're there. We're not going to make a big deal about this, because this is just the right thing to do. I've invested $50 million in capital to change our packaging, so getting out of plastic rings, getting to more sustainable packaging, which, cardboard looks like it's right now the best alternative solution, highly recyclable, moving more products to aluminum cans versus plastic, so reducing our plastics. Greenhouse gas emissions. It's interesting, the government years ago went and said, here, take these cogen units, burn natural gas to create energy, and we'll incentivize you to do it. And now they're saying, we're going to tax that, and you need to hit this target. So it's interesting how things happen, but the idea is that we have plans to reduce our greenhouse gas. Water conservation, the same sort of thing. We have systems in our plants that allow us to use the water that we produce with to recycle that into our operations to use to cool. We take the heat from the building, from the equipment, and we regenerate that and pump that back into our plants. So there's so many initiatives that we're doing, and if you looked at this kind of traditional scorecard, we would say that we're leading the way within our peer groups. We've got a lot of work to do, though. We've got a lot of work to do, but we're investing heavily. And listen, I shared the sugar example. I'll share the sugar example with you. So when you produce a full sugar product, and by the way, consumption has been declining at about 2% per year on full sugar products. People make choices, it's fine. We have a portfolio, buy what you want. That's heavier than a Diet Pepsi or Pepsi Zero Sugar because it has sweeteners in it, and those sweeteners are much, much lighter. And so if you think about transporting sugar, raw sugar or high fructose corn syrup or whatever the sweetener is being used, from area, we don't grow sugarcane in Canada. Corn we don't really produce high fructose corn syrup from corn in Ontario. It has to come from far distances. We don't feel good about that. And so the idea is that if you can limit your environmental footprint by shifting to these products, it's also helping consumers make better choices. Then that's kind of, we call it a stacked win, right? It's better for the environment because you're burning less greenhouse gas. It's better for us actually from a cost basis because sugar is quite expensive and it's really expensive to ship this stuff all over the world. And it's also better for consumers because we could have can take a few calories out of people's diets.
I know it. Another area that companies are really dealing with is this fast-paced change of technology, from AI to robotics, big data, that sort of thing. How is Pepsi embracing sort of technological change?
Yeah, I'd like to say that we're leading the way here, but I don't think we're there yet. So there's a few areas, right? So when you think about automation as an example, I would say we're leading the way. That's just the right thing. It's efficient. It's safer. There's a lot of different ways, and then we invest back in the skills of the people that were doing those jobs before. We reskill them, we upskill them, and find them other places to work, which is great. And they're typically higher paying jobs after that, anyways, because you got to run out. You're now a machine engineer versus a forklift operator, basically. But if you flip over to kind of like the AI and the kind of heavy tech side, it's happening so fast. We have a heavy governance on what can and can't be done right now. But we are using it internally for things like as we stand up our integrated business plans. So taking all of the data that we have, and we're a data-rich company. We're in the middle of a SAP transition. Hands up if you've been through an SAP transition.
A couple.
I'm sorry to hear that. It's very painful. You can see the future, but PepsiCo has been a combination of a bunch of businesses and a bunch of IT systems that have all merged together. So the data doesn't really speak that well together, and so SAP brings it all together essentially, right? And so we're in this transition here now. We're doing it over multiple years rather than rip the Band-Aid off and cripple the business. We're doing this in modules, and this is the right way to do it. It's the biggest SAP transition in the history of their organization. So concurrent with that, we're saying, okay, now that we have this data that's going to be available in a succinct way across the entire network globally, what do you do with it? And so we're transitioning to a platform which will be AI enabled to help us make better decisions on talent forecasting, understanding more of the people dynamic metrics. We're using it to forecast demand, to understand supply chain costs. You name it. You just think about the art of the possible with data. You name it. So I'll give you an interesting one on communications. I got my wrist slapped on this one. So what you see on LinkedIn for me or whatever my external comms are, it's not AI, just to let you know. It could be AI. It very much could be AI. But when you're looking at broad-based communications and when you're looking at how you communicate to build empathy and understanding, and it might not be a skill that's really, really great you can measure this with your teams, like how many people are really, really good at this. You can use that as an enabler to help them become better at demonstrating empathy and understanding through written communication, as an example. I talked about personal development. Personal development, if personal development is to be able to write a good development plan for someone, to be a good manager, it's a skill. AI can help with that. They can help build the model out, and you just input the information. So all of those little things, those are little nuanced ways to really help build capability and build capability of the organization. Those are examples. But there's no video here, but have you ever heard of HiGen? HiGen? I don't speak French. I have about 20% of my organization is almost all French. French is their first language, but they want. And my best thing, I love learning. That's why I've shared that with you. I love learning. I cannot speak French. I can't. It doesn't compute in my head. So I was using AI to do some translation. We have actually a translator on staff, but we were using AI to translate because it's just more communications that they were capable of doing.
I'm sensing something here.
And so we did some tests with this company called HiGen. So I have a town hall today, that's why I'm dressed a little casual, I apologize. So I'm going to go and speak with the 4,500 employees today. And I'm missing a big opportunity to connect with a bunch of folks that don't speak the language that well, that don't speak English that well. And so we now have the ability to take my town hall, the video portion of it, and convert it to whatever language we want in about 3 minutes. And we did some testing on it, and it's unbelievably scary and unbelievably compelling. It looks like I speak fluent French.
This is incredible. You know what? I saw something similar in the music industry where there's an artist called Lauv out of California, and he is the first North American artist to release one of his songs in Korean, in Korea, but it's him singing it, and it sounds, very similar to this experience.
It's unbelievable. Now, you have to be careful with this, and this is where, as a big organization, we have very, very strong governance on this. And so, we're working through how we, adapt it and modify it, maybe test it in Canada, but the sky's the limit here. AI is the future, let's be honest. It's the future. It's so easy, it's so incredible, but I think we've got to be very, very cautious in terms of how it's used, and does the usage ladder back to what we're trying to accomplish. I'm not interested to replace my legal counsel team because it's easy to do law through AI. I'm not saying it is, I'm just saying if it was easy, that's never what we would do. But this notion of how I can build capability to make folks better and then create capacity so we can use these folks to do other things, because my law team's taxed. They got to deal with all this regulatory stuff that's coming down. They got to deal with all of these new agreements that we're forging. This is like heavy investment. But if I could free them up from doing something that's maybe repetitive, that can be done through AI, that allows them to put more mind time and to build these capabilities in these other areas, it's a massive.
That's the multiplier right there.
That's the multiplier. That's where I see AI being, and this is just my own personal opinion, by the way.
Mike, that was fantastic. I really enjoyed that. You didn't answer one of the problems in my life. You see, my wife is a diehard Coke drinker, and my mother-in-law is a diehard Pepsi drinker. Right? So every holiday that we have, I see to it that we stock well with Pepsi. We love it, right? So that's great. The food and beverage industry is something very close to my colleagues at Gallagher and myself. We thrive in that industry. Everything from wineries to breweries to meat processing, food, all sorts of food and beverage. No two industries no two businesses are alike, so it's really cool to see that. As far as you are concerned, I mean, you're probably one of the most dynamic leaders I've spoken to in a long time. I had the pleasure of sitting with you pre-breakfast and getting to know you, and to hear your passion. That's wonderful, and I know that everybody who works for you must enjoy working for you. So thank you so much for taking the time to address us. The board of the Mississauga Board of Directors and membership. Thank you kindly for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.